The most powerful crime boss in Chicago never raised his voice to destroy a life. He just signed his name. Across his desk sat a trembling housekeeper accused of a crime she didn't commit. With one signature, Ethan Varelli shattered her world. But hidden in her pocket was a secret that would haunt him for 6 years. A pregnancy test that would change everything. She left it broken on his desk and walked away in silence. He never asked what it meant. That single moment of cruelty would cost him everything he never knew he wanted. Stay until the end to see how this unfolds. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The winter rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Varelli's office, 47 stories above Chicago's riverfront. The city sprawled beneath him like a kingdom, dark, wet, and his. Every building, every street corner, every whispered deal, and every shadowed alley somehow traced back to this room, to this desk, to him. Ethan didn't look up from the contract he was reading. He didn't need to. He knew exactly who was standing on the other side of his mahogany desk, hands clasped together, shoulders hunched in that universal posture of the powerless. He'd seen it 1,000 times before. Fear had a particular smell in this office, sharp, acrid, mixed with the leather of the chairs and the expensive bourbon he kept in crystal decanters he never touched. "Mr. Varelli," the woman's voice was barely above a whisper. "Please. I didn't take anything. I swear I didn't." Lena Cruz, 24 years old, housekeeper, 3 months employed, accused of stealing $15,000 in cash from a safe in the east wing of his Lakeshore Drive mansion. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. She'd been the only person with access that weekend. The money was gone. The accusation had been made. In Ethan's world, that was enough. He finally looked up, his pale gray eyes meeting hers with the warmth of a surgical blade. She was small, maybe 5'3", with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and brown eyes currently bright with unshed tears. She wore the standard uniform, black pants, white shirt, sensible shoes. Forgettable? Replaceable. That's what everyone who worked for him was supposed to be. The evidence suggests otherwise, Ms. Cruz. His voice was measured, calm, the kind of tone that made grown men confess to crimes they didn't commit just to escape the weight of his attention. $15,000 disappeared from a locked safe. You were the only person in that wing of the house. You were the only person with the access code for that particular weekend. "I didn't—" Her voice cracked. She pressed her lips together, fighting for composure. "Mr. Varelli, I've never stolen anything in my life. Please, I need this job. My mother is sick. I'm trying to save money for her treatment. I would never—" "Everyone has their reasons, Miss Cruz." Ethan picked up the fountain pen from his desk. A Mont Blanc, $20,000, a gift from a judge he'd bought 3 years ago. "And everyone lies when they're caught. I don't have time for this conversation." He slid the termination papers across the desk toward her. The gesture was final, dismissive. In his world, once Ethan Varelli made a decision, the universe bent to accommodate it. Lena stared at the papers like they were a death sentence. In many ways, they were. In Chicago's domestic employment network, being fired by Ethan Varelli for theft meant you'd never work in a decent home again. The Whisper Network would spread the story before she even left the building. She'd be radioactive. "Please," she whispered again, and Ethan felt a flicker of something, annoyance maybe, or impatience. He had a meeting with the heads of 3 families in an hour. He had shipments coming in from the docks that needed his attention. He had a territorial dispute on the south side that required his particular brand of negotiation. He didn't have time for the tears of a girl who'd made a stupid decision and gotten caught. "Sign the papers, Ms. Cruz. Take whatever severance is listed there. Be grateful I'm not pursuing criminal charges." Behind him, his head of security, Marcus, stood silent as a statue. Marcus had been with Ethan for 12 years. He'd seen executions, interrogations, and violence that would make most people vomit. But he'd also seen this, the cold, bureaucratic destruction of ordinary lives. Sometimes, Marcus thought this was worse. Cleaner, maybe. But worse. Lena's hand shook as she picked up the pen. Ethan watched with clinical detachment as she signed her name on 3 different pages, each signature a nail in the coffin of her future. When she finished, she set the pen down with exaggerated care, as if afraid she might break it and be charged for that too. "There's a severance check attached," Ethan said, already looking back at his other papers. 2 weeks' pay. More than generous, considering. Lena stood there for another moment, and Ethan could feel her staring at him. He didn't look up. He'd learned long ago that eye contact invited conversation, and conversation invited complications. Better to make himself a wall, impenetrable and cold. "I didn't do it," she said one final time, her voice steadier now. Not pleading, just stating a fact she knew he wouldn't believe. "Someday you'll know that. And I hope it hurts." Ethan's jaw tightened. He still didn't look up. "Marcus, show Ms. Cruz out." Marcus moved forward, his presence gentle but inexorable. Lena turned and Ethan heard her footsteps on the hardwood floor, heard the door open, heard Marcus's low voice saying something he couldn't make out. And then, just before the door closed, he heard something else. A small sound, something hitting his desk. Ethan looked up. Lying on the polished surface of his desk, right next to the signed termination papers, was a small white stick, cracked, broken into 2 pieces. But unmistakable. A pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. Positive. Ethan stared at it, his mind suddenly blank. The office was silent except for the rain. He reached out slowly, picked up one half of the broken test, turned it over in his fingers like it was an artifact from an alien civilization. The door clicked shut. She was gone. Ethan sat there, the broken pregnancy test in his hand, and for the first time in years, he didn't know what to do. Questions piled up in his mind like a car crash in slow motion. Was it his? When would it have happened? He tried to think back, tried to remember, and then he did remember. 3 months ago. A night when he'd been working late at the mansion instead of here at the office. Most of the staff had gone home, but she'd been there, cleaning the library. He'd asked her to bring him coffee. They'd talked. Actually talked, which was unusual for him. She told him about her mother's illness, about growing up in Pilsen, about wanting to save enough money to go back to school someday. She'd been real in a way most people in his life weren't, not performing, not wanting anything except to be seen as human for 5 minutes. And then, fueled by too much bourbon and too many late nights, and a loneliness he never acknowledged, he'd crossed a line he'd never crossed with staff before. It had happened once. Just once. She'd been hesitant but willing. He'd been... what? Not kind. He was never kind, but not cruel either. Just indifferent to consequences, the way he was about everything. He'd forgotten about it by morning, another transaction in a life full of them. But now, Ethan looked at the broken test again. The 2 pink lines seemed to glow in the gray afternoon light. She'd been pregnant, was pregnant, standing right there, 3 feet away, and she hadn't said a word. She'd just signed the papers, taken his dismissive severance, and left a broken pregnancy test on his desk like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Marcus," Ethan said quietly. The door opened immediately. Marcus had been standing outside, waiting. He always waited. "Sir?" "The girl. Lena Cruz. Where did she go?" Marcus hesitated. "Down to the lobby, I assume. Should I call down and have her stopped?" Ethan almost said yes. The word was right there on his tongue. Stop her. Bring her back. Make her explain. Make her tell him what this meant, what she wanted, what she expected from him. But he didn't say it. Instead, he said, "No, let her go." Marcus nodded and closed the door again, and Ethan was alone with the broken test in the rain and a decision he would regret for the next 6 years. He told himself she was lying. The test was fake, or it was someone else's, or it was a ploy to get money out of him. He told himself he didn't care. He told himself it wasn't his problem. He told himself a lot of things that winter afternoon, and then he threw the broken pregnancy test in the trash and went back to work. 6 years later. The thing about empires, Ethan had learned, was that they expanded to fill whatever space you gave them. 6 years ago, he'd controlled 30% of Chicago's underground economy. Now he controlled 60. 6 years ago, he'd had 3 aldermen in his pocket. Now he had 8, plus 2 state senators and a federal judge who owed him favors that could never be repaid. By any objective measure, he'd won. He was richer, more powerful, more untouchable than ever before. He was also emptier than he'd ever been, but he told himself that was just the cost of power. It was a Tuesday morning in March when the first crack appeared in the foundation of his empire. Ethan was in his office, the same desk, the same view of a city that bent to his will. Marcus entered without knocking, which meant it was urgent. "We have a problem," Marcus said. Ethan looked up from the financial reports he'd been reviewing. "Specify." "Your brother." Ethan's jaw tightened. Daniel. Younger by 3 years, stupider by several degrees, and perpetually causing problems that Ethan had to clean up. What did he do now? It's what he did 6 years ago. Marcus placed a folder on the desk. "I've been going through old security footage, digitizing the archives like you asked. I found something." Ethan opened the folder. Inside were printed stills from security camera footage, time-stamped 6 years ago. December. The mansion. East Wing. And there was Daniel, clear as day, entering the room with the safe, leaving 20 minutes later with a bag. "Jesus Christ," Ethan said quietly. "There's more," Marcus said. "I pulled his financial records from that time period. He deposited $15,000 in cash 2 days after the theft was reported. Exactly $15,000. The room spun slightly. Ethan gripped the edge of his desk, staring at the evidence that proved what he'd done 6 years ago. He'd fired an innocent woman, destroyed her reputation, sent her away pregnant and alone because he'd been too arrogant, too certain, too goddamn stupid to verify the facts. "Where's Daniel now?" Ethan's voice was ice. "Miami, at the hotel." "Get him back here, today. I don't care if you have to drag him onto a plane personally." Marcus nodded and left, and Ethan sat there staring at the photographs. And then, like a man possessed, he started going through his files, pulling everything from 6 years ago. Payroll records, staff files, termination papers. There it was. Lena Cruz. Last known address, a studio apartment in Pilsen. Phone number disconnected. No forwarding address. She'd vanished. Ethan picked up his phone and called his best investigator. "I need you to find someone. Lena Cruz. 24 years old 6 years ago, so 30 now. Last known address was Pilsen. Worked as a housekeeper. I need everything. Where she is, what she's doing, who she's with. I need it yesterday." "Yes, sir. I'll start immediately." Ethan hung up and stared out the window at the city. Somewhere out there was a woman he'd wronged. Somewhere out there might be a child. His child. For the first time in 6 years, Ethan Varelli felt something he'd thought he'd eliminated from his emotional repertoire. Guilt. It felt like swallowing glass. The investigator was good. 36 hours later, Ethan had a file 2 inches thick sitting on his desk. Lena Cruz, age 30, current residence in Bridgeport. Owner and operator of Cruz Cleaning Services, a small but apparently successful residential cleaning company that employed 12 women. There were photographs. Lena looking older, stronger, her dark hair shorter now, her eyes harder. Lena outside a modest 2-story building that served as both her business headquarters and her home. Lena at a grocery store, at a park, at a school. A school. Ethan flipped to the next page and stopped breathing. There was a child, a girl, 5 years old, almost 6, dark hair and 2 braids, brown eyes, holding Lena's hand as they walked down a sidewalk. The girl's name was Maya Cruz. No father listed on the birth certificate. Ethan stared at the photograph for a long time. The girl had his eyes, that particular shade of gray-blue that ran in the Varelli family. His mother had those eyes. His grandfather had those eyes. This child had those eyes. "Marcus," Ethan said quietly. Marcus materialized from wherever he lurked when not directly needed. "I need to see her." "Which one?" "Both of them." Marcus nodded. "When?" "Now." Lena was walking home from Maya's school, her daughter's small hand in hers, when she felt the prickle of being watched. 6 years of hypervigilance had honed her instincts. She knew what danger felt like, and it was crawling up her spine right now. She tightened her grip on Maya's hand and picked up her pace. "Mama, you're walking too fast," Maya complained, her little legs jogging to keep up. "I know, baby. We're almost home." The black SUV pulled up beside them so smoothly, so quietly, that Lena didn't hear it until it was already there. The back window rolled down, and Lena's heart stopped. Ethan Varelli looked exactly the same. Older, maybe. A few gray threads in his dark hair, but the same cold eyes, the same aristocratic face, the same presence that sucked all the air out of any space he occupied. "Ms. Cruz," he said, his voice exactly as she remembered. "We need to talk." Lena stopped walking. She pushed Maya behind her, a mother bear protecting her cub. "I have nothing to say to you. I have things to say to you." Ethan's eyes flicked down to Maya, who was peeking around her mother's legs with undisguised curiosity. When his gaze met the child's, something flickered across his face. Recognition. Confirmation. "Please, 10 minutes. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here. I'll meet you there." "No." "I know what I did 6 years ago. I know I was wrong." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Lena stared at him, searching for the trap, the angle, the manipulation. Ethan Varelli didn't apologize. Ethan Varelli didn't admit mistakes. 10 minutes, he said again, and then I'll leave you alone if that's what you want. Lena knew she should say no, should take Maya and run, should disappear again, deeper this time, where he could never find them. But there was something in his voice, something she'd never heard before. It sounded almost like regret. "The coffee shop on Morgan," she said finally. 20 minutes. I need to take Maya home first." Ethan nodded, and the window rolled up, and the SUV glided away like a black ghost. Maya tugged on her mother's hand. "Mama, who was that man?" Lena looked down at her daughter, bright, curious, beautiful Maya, who had her father's eyes and her mother's strength, and didn't know yet how complicated the world could be. "Someone from a long time ago, baby," Lena said quietly. "Someone I thought I'd never see again." "Is he bad?" Lena considered the question. Was Ethan Varelli bad? Yes, obviously, unquestionably. He was a criminal, a manipulator, a man who destroyed lives without losing sleep, but he was also Maya's father. "I don't know," Lena said finally, which was the most honest answer she could give. "Come on, let's get you home." Convince. The coffee shop on Morgan was a small local place that Lena had been coming to for 3 years. The owner, Rosa, knew her by name, knew Maya, knew that Lena took her coffee black with 2 sugars and sometimes splurged on a blueberry muffin when times were good. When Lena walked in alone 20 minutes later, Rosa gave her a questioning look. Lena shook her head slightly. "Not now," and Rosa nodded and went back to wiping down the counter. Ethan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking as out of place as a wolf in a petting zoo. His suit probably cost more than this entire shop's monthly revenue. 2 men in dark suits stood by the door, bodyguards, obviously. This was a man who didn't go anywhere without protection. Lena bought her own coffee and sat down across from him. She didn't say anything, just waited. Ethan studied her for a moment, and Lena met his gaze without flinching. She wasn't the scared girl who'd signed those termination papers 6 years ago. She'd been forged in fire since then. She'd been alone, pregnant, and broke. She'd given birth in a county hospital with no one to hold her hand. She'd worked 3 jobs while barely sleeping, fought off landlords and debt collectors and her own despair. She'd survived, and survival had made her steel. "I found proof," Ethan said finally. "My brother stole the money. There's security footage, financial records. You were innocent." Lena took a sip of her coffee. "I know I was innocent. I told you I was innocent. You didn't believe me." "No," Ethan said quietly. "I didn't." "Why now? Why come find me now? It's been 6 years." "Because I found the evidence, because I realized what I'd done." He paused. "And because I saw what you left on my desk that day." Lena's hand tightened on her coffee cup. "The pregnancy test." "Yes. What about it?" "Is she mine?" The question hung between them like a blade. Lena could lie. Should lie. Should tell him no, Maya was someone else's. He had no claim, no right, no connection. But Maya deserved better than to be denied. Better than to be a secret. Better than to have a father who didn't know she existed. And Lena was tired of carrying this alone. "Yes," she said simply. "She's yours." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, there was something raw there. Something that looked almost like pain. "What's her name?" "Maya. Maya Elena Cruz." "Elena," Ethan repeated softly. After you. After my mother. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. The same cancer I was trying to save money to treat when you fired me. The words were a knife, precisely placed. Ethan flinched. Actually flinched. I'm sorry, he said. Lena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sorry. You're sorry. Do you know what sorry means to me? Sorry doesn't pay the hospital bills. Sorry doesn't hold my hand during labor. Sorry doesn't explain to a 5-year-old why she doesn't have a father like the other kids at school. I know. You don't know anything. Lena leaned forward, her voice low and fierce. You have no idea what it was like. Pregnant, fired, blacklisted from every decent job in the city because Ethan Varelli said I was a thief. I cleaned toilets for $3 an hour under the table because no one would hire me legitimately. I gave birth alone because I couldn't afford anyone to be with me. I missed my mother's last 6 months because I was working 3 jobs to keep a roof over Maya's head. Each word was a hammer blow, and Ethan took them without defense. He just sat there, absorbing it, his face carved from stone, but his eyes showed everything. Why didn't you come to me? He asked quietly. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Are you serious? Lena's voice rose slightly, and she forced herself to lower it. You just fired me for something I didn't do. You looked at me like I was garbage, like I was nothing. Why would I tell you anything? What did I think you'd do? Suddenly care? Suddenly believe me? You made it very clear what I was worth to you. You're right, Ethan said. You're absolutely right. I was wrong about everything, and I can't fix what I did. I know that, but I want to... He stopped, seemed to struggle with words. I want to know her, my daughter. If you'll let me. Lena stared at him. Why? Because she's mine. Because I've already missed 6 years. Because... He stopped again, and for the first time since she'd known him, Ethan Varelli looked lost. Because I want to try to be something other than what I am. And what are you? Empty, Ethan said quietly. I'm empty. I have everything I thought I wanted, and none of it means anything. But that little girl, when I saw her photograph, when I saw her eyes, he looked directly at Lena. I felt something. For the first time in years, I felt something real. Lena wanted to tell him no. Wanted to protect Maya from this man and his world and his darkness. But she also saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Something that looked like desperate, aching hope. And maybe, just maybe, Maya deserved to know her father. Deserved the chance to have him in her life, even if that life was complicated and messy and dangerous. If I let you meet her, Lena said slowly, there are rules, non-negotiable rules. Name them. You don't tell her who you are, not yet. Not until I decide she's ready to know what you do, who you are in this city. Ethan nodded. You meet her in public places, with me present, always, no exceptions. Agreed. And if she ever asks you to leave, if she ever says she doesn't want to see you, you leave. Immediately. No arguments. Understood. Lena took a deep breath. And you need to understand that I will protect her from everything, including you. If you hurt her, if you disappoint her, if you bring your world anywhere near her, I will disappear with her so completely you'll never find us again. I've done it once. I can do it again. I believe you, Ethan said quietly. And I won't. Hurt her, I mean, or bring my world near her. I promise you that. Promises from Ethan Varelli were probably worthless. But Lena found herself believing him anyway. Maybe she was a fool. Maybe she was making a terrible mistake. But maybe, just maybe, people could change. Tomorrow, Lena said. The park on Throop Street, 2 o'clock. We'll be there for an hour. You can meet her. As a friend. Someone who knows her mother. Thank you, Ethan said. And the gratitude in his voice was so raw, so genuine, that Lena had to look away. She stood up, coffee only half finished. Don't make me regret this. I won't. Lena walked out of the coffee shop and into the afternoon sun, her heart pounding, her mind racing. She'd just agreed to let the most dangerous man in Chicago into her daughter's life. She must be insane. But as she walked home, she thought about Maya's questions, the ones that had started a year ago and grown more frequent. Why don't I have a daddy? Where's my father? Doesn't he love me? And maybe, just maybe, This was a chance to give her daughter something Lena had never had. A choice. A chance to know her father and decide for herself what that meant. The next 24 hours were going to change everything. Lena just hoped she was ready. To be continued. That night, Lena barely slept. She lay in her small bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to Maya's soft breathing through the thin wall that separated their rooms. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face. That look of desperate hope, that raw vulnerability she'd never imagined existed beneath his cold exterior. She'd made a decision that could destroy everything she'd built. Or it could give Maya something Lena had never had, a father who wanted to know her. At 6 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went to make coffee. The apartment was quiet, peaceful in the early light. She'd worked so hard for this place. 2 bedrooms, clean, safe, in a neighborhood where Maya could play outside without Lena's heart being in her throat every second. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. And now she was inviting a monster into this sanctuary. "Mama?" Maya's sleepy voice came from the doorway. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with the butterflies. Her dark hair was a tangled mess around her face. "Morning, baby. You're up early." Maya padded over and climbed into Lena's lap, something she was getting almost too big for, but Lena would never tell her that. She buried her face in her mother's neck, still half asleep. "Are we going to the park today?" Maya mumbled. "Yes, we are. And we're meeting someone there. Someone I used to know." Maya lifted her head, suddenly more alert. "The man from the car?" Lena's heart clenched. Maya was too smart, too observant. "Yes. His name is Ethan. He's an old friend." "Is he nice?" Such a simple question, such an impossible answer. "I don't know anymore, baby, but we're going to find out together, okay?" Maya nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer, and settled back against her mother's chest. Lena held her tighter, breathing in the scent of her daughter's shampoo, and prayed she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her life. The hours crawled by. Lena tried to work. She had payroll to process for her cleaning company, schedules to finalize, a new client to call back. But she couldn't focus. Her mind kept circling back to the park, to 2 o'clock, to the moment when Ethan Varelli would meet his daughter for the first time. At 1:30, she got Maya ready. The little girl insisted on wearing her favorite dress, the yellow one with white flowers that Lena had bought her for her birthday. She wanted her hair in 2 braids, wanted to wear her good shoes, the ones she usually saved for special occasions. "Why are you getting so fancy?" Lena asked, trying to keep her voice light even though her stomach was churning. "Because we're meeting your friend," Maya said matter-of-factly. "Mama, you always say first impressions are important." Lena's throat tightened, her daughter teaching her own lessons back to her. "You're right, baby. First impressions are very important." They walked to the park hand in hand, Maya chattering about a picture she'd drawn in school, about her friend Sophie, who had lost a tooth, about the butterflies she'd seen on their walk yesterday. Normal things, beautiful things, the ordinary magic of a child's life. And Lena was about to shatter that ordinary magic by introducing chaos incarnate. The park on Throop Street was small but well-maintained. There was a playground, some benches, a few trees that provided shade in the summer. At 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, it was moderately busy. A few mothers with young children, an elderly man feeding pigeons, a couple of teenagers skipping school, and Ethan Varelli sitting alone on a bench, looking more out of place than Lena had ever seen him. He wasn't wearing a suit. That was the first shock. He was dressed in dark jeans and a simple black sweater, expensive but understated. No bodyguards visible, though Lena was certain they were nearby. His hands were clasped between his knees, and he was staring at the playground like it held the secrets of the universe. He looked nervous. Ethan Varelli looked nervous. Maya tugged on Lena's hand. "Is that him?" "Yes, baby, that's Ethan." They walked over and Ethan stood up the moment he saw them. His eyes went immediately to Maya, and Lena watched his face transform. The cold mask he usually wore cracked completely, replaced by something softer, more human. Wonder. He looked at Maya with absolute wonder. "Hi," Maya said, because her mother had raised her to be polite even when meeting strangers in parks. "I'm Maya." Ethan crouched down to her level, and Lena's hand instinctively tightened on her daughter's shoulder. But Ethan didn't move closer. He just stayed there, at Maya's height, his hands loose at his sides. "Hi, Maya. I'm Ethan. It's very nice to meet you." "Mama says you're her friend." "I am," Ethan said, and the lie tasted bitter on Lena's tongue even though it was necessary. "I knew your mama a long time ago." Maya studied him with the unnerving intensity that only children possess. "You have eyes like me." Ethan's breath caught. "I do?" "Yeah, they're gray and blue at the same time. Sophie at school says my eyes are weird, but I think they're pretty." "They're beautiful," Ethan said quietly, "and Sophie doesn't know what she's talking about." Maya giggled, and the sound seemed to physically affect Ethan. He closed his eyes for just a second, like he was trying to memorize the moment. Lena cleared her throat. "Maya, why don't you go play on the swings? I need to talk to Ethan for a minute." "Okay, Mama." Maya skipped off toward the playground, her yellow dress bright in the afternoon sun. Ethan stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's small form. "She's perfect," he said, his voice rough. "Lena, she's absolutely perfect. I know. She has your smile, your laugh, but those eyes—" He finally looked at Lena. "She has my mother's eyes." "Exactly. My mother would have loved her." "Your mother is dead?" 10 years ago. Cancer." Lena felt a small stab of sympathy before she could stop herself. "My mother died of cancer, too, 3 years ago." They stood there in awkward silence, two people bound by blood and history, and a child playing on swings who didn't know her world was about to change forever. "How do you want to do this?" Ethan asked finally. "Slowly," Lena said, "carefully. You can spend time with her, but as a friend, someone who comes around occasionally. When she's older, when she asks the right questions, I'll tell her the truth. But not yet. She's too young to understand what you are." "What I am," Ethan repeated. "You mean a criminal." "I mean dangerous. I mean someone whose enemies would use her to get to you. I mean someone who lives in a world of violence and power that a 5-year-old should never have to think about. I can protect her." "You shouldn't have to. That's the point." Lena crossed her arms. "She deserves a normal childhood. Friends and school and birthday parties and ordinary problems. Not bodyguards and security details and looking over her shoulder." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because this isn't negotiable, Ethan. The moment your world touches her, this ends. I will take her and disappear, and you will never find us. I've planned for this. I have money saved. New identities ready. I can vanish in 24 hours. Ethan looked at her with something that might have been respect. "You've thought of everything." "I'm her mother. It's my job to think of everything." A shriek of laughter came from the playground. Maya was on the swings now, pumping her legs to go higher. She looked so small, so fragile, so full of joy. "I miss so much," Ethan said quietly. Her first steps. Her first words. All of it. "Yes," Lena said, because there was no point in softening the truth. "You did." Was the birth difficult?" The question caught Lena off guard. She'd expected many things from Ethan, but not this. Not genuine concern about something that had happened 6 years ago. 17 hours of labor, she said finally. Alone. In a county hospital where they treat uninsured patients like cattle. The nurse who was supposed to be with me had 3 other women in labor at the same time. I was so scared. The words came out before she could stop them. I was 24 years old, alone, and so scared I thought I might die. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "I'm sorry." "Stop saying that. Sorry doesn't change anything." "I know, but I don't know what else to say." "Then don't say anything. Just be here. If you're going to do this, then do it. Show up. Be consistent. Don't promise her things you can't deliver. She's already grown up without a father. Don't make it worse by being a father who disappoints her." "I won't." "We'll see." They walked over to the playground together, maintaining careful distance. Maya saw them coming and jumped off the swing mid-arc, landing with the fearless grace of a child who doesn't yet know how fragile bones can be. "Ethan, did you see how high I was going?" "I did. You're very brave." "Mama says I'm brave like her. She says we're both survivors." Maya said it with the casual pride of someone repeating a lesson learned well. "Are you brave, Ethan?" The question seemed to stump him. Lena watched him struggle with how to answer a 5-year-old's simple question when the truth was so complicated. "I'm trying to be," he said finally. "Sometimes being brave means doing things that scare you because they're the right thing to do." "Like going to the dentist?" Ethan's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Exactly like going to the dentist." Maya nodded sagely, apparently satisfied with this answer. "Do you want to push me on the swings?" Lena saw panic flash across Ethan's face. The man who controlled half of Chicago's criminal underworld was terrified of pushing a child on a swing. "Go ahead," Lena said softly. "She won't break." Ethan walked over to the swings like he was approaching a bomb. Maya climbed on, gripping the chains, her little legs dangling. "Push me high, Ethan, really high." "How high is really high?" "To the sky." Ethan gave a gentle push, barely moving the swing. Maya laughed. "Harder! I won't fall, I promise." He pushed harder, and Maya soared up, her laughter ringing out across the playground. Lena watched from a few feet away, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This man, this dangerous, violent, powerful man, was being so careful with their daughter, like she was made of glass and starlight. "Higher!" Maya shrieked with delight. "I think this is high enough," Ethan said, but there was warmth in his voice, something that sounded almost like happiness. They stayed at the park for an hour. Maya showed Ethan how to go down the slide properly. You have to put your hands up and yell, "Wee!" How to climb the jungle gym. Don't be scared, it's easy. How to find the best rocks for her collection. The ones with sparkles are the best, but smooth ones are good too. Ethan followed her around like a student learning a foreign language, asking questions, listening intently, treating every small revelation about his daughter's life like it was the most important information in the world. And watching them together, Lena felt the ice around her heart start to crack. Just a little. Just enough to let in the possibility that maybe this could work. At 3 o'clock, Lena called time. "We need to go, Maya. I have a client meeting in an hour." "Oh, Mama, do we have to?" "Yes, baby. Say goodbye to Ethan." Maya turned to Ethan, her small face serious. "Will you come to the park again?" Ethan looked at Lena, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. "Yes," he said to Maya. "If your mother says it's okay, I'd like to come back." "Good. Next time we can feed the ducks." "Mama says we can feed the ducks, but only with special duck food, not bread, because bread makes their stomachs hurt." "Your mother's very smart." "I know." Maya hugged Lena's leg. Then, to everyone's surprise, she darted forward and hugged Ethan's leg too, a quick, impulsive gesture that froze him in place. When she pulled back, Ethan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "Bye, Ethan." "Goodbye, Maya." They walked away, Maya skipping beside Lena, chattering about the park, about Ethan, about the rocks she'd found. Lena didn't look back, but she could feel Ethan's eyes on them until they turned the corner. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena sat in her kitchen with a cup of tea and thought about the look on Ethan's face when Maya had hugged him, like he'd been given something precious he didn't know he'd been missing. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for today, for her, for the chance. I know I don't deserve it." Lena stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "You're right, you don't. But she deserves to know her father. Don't make me regret this." "I won't. When can I see her again?" "Saturday? Same place? 2 o'clock. I'll be there." Lena set her phone down and wrapped her hands around her teacup. What had she started? What door had she opened? Only time would tell if it was salvation or destruction. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, they met at the park. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes longer if Lena's schedule allowed. Ethan showed up every single time, never late, never with excuses. He brought Maya small gifts, a book about butterflies, a set of colored pencils, a stuffed elephant she named Mr. Trunks. Nothing extravagant, nothing that would raise questions, just thoughtful tokens that showed he was paying attention to who she was. And Maya bloomed under his attention. She started talking about Ethan constantly. "Ethan says I'm good at drawing. Ethan says butterflies can taste with their feet. Ethan knows so many things, Mama." Lena watched it happen with mixed feelings, joy that her daughter was happy, fear that she was getting too attached, jealousy, if she was honest, that Ethan was getting the easy part, the fun park visits, while Lena still dealt with homework struggles and bedtime battles and all the hard parts of parenting. But she kept the bargain, kept showing up, kept giving him chances to prove he could be something other than what he'd been 6 years ago. One Saturday in April, Maya came down with a stomach bug that morning. Lena texted Ethan to cancel. "I'm sorry. Maya's sick. We can't make it today." The response came immediately. "Is she okay? Does she need a doctor?" "It's just a stomach bug. She'll be fine in a day or two." "Can I bring anything? Medicine? Soup?" Lena stared at the text. The Ethan Varelli she'd known 6 years ago would never have asked if he could bring soup to a sick child. "We're fine. I'll text you when she's feeling better." But 30 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Lena looked through the peephole, and her heart jumped. Ethan stood in her hallway, holding a bag from the pharmacy and another bag that smelled like chicken soup. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" "You said she was sick." "I said we were fine. I wanted to make sure." He held up the bags. "I didn't know what kind of medicine she might need, so I got several options. And the soup is from that place on Ashland that's supposed to be good for sick kids." Lena should have sent him away, should have maintained boundaries, should have protected the careful distance they'd established. Instead, she opened the door wider. "Come in, but if you get her more worked up than she already is, you're leaving." Ethan stepped into her apartment and Lena saw him taking it in. The modest furniture, the walls covered in Maya's artwork, the small kitchen where she'd eaten 1,000 meals, the life she'd built from nothing. "Mama?" Maya's weak voice came from her bedroom. "Who's here?" "It's Ethan, baby. He heard you weren't feeling well and wanted to check on you." Maya appeared in the hallway, wrapped in her favorite blanket, her face pale. When she saw Ethan, she brightened slightly. "You came?" "Of course I came. Your mom said you were sick. My tummy hurts. I brought soup and medicine. And—" He reached into the pharmacy bag and pulled out a small stuffed bunny. "A friend to keep you company while you rest." Maya's eyes went wide. She took the bunny carefully, like it was made of spun sugar. "For me?" "For you. Thank you." She hugged the bunny close. "Can you stay, just for a little while?" Ethan looked at Lena. She should say no, should keep the boundaries clear, should not let this man any deeper into their lives. "Just for a little while," she heard herself say instead. They ended up on the couch, Maya between them, wrapped in her blanket and clutching her new bunny. Ethan read to her from one of her favorite books, a story about a brave little girl who went on adventures. His voice was gentle, patient, nothing like the cold tone Lena remembered from his office. Maya fell asleep halfway through, her head resting against Ethan's arm. He kept reading anyway, his voice low and soothing, until he reached the end of the story. Then he just sat there, looking down at his sleeping daughter, his expression unguarded in a way Lena had never seen. "I'll put her to bed," Lena whispered. "Let me." The request was quiet, almost tentative. "Please." Lena nodded. Ethan carefully, so carefully, lifted Maya into his arms. She stirred slightly but didn't wake, just curled against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. Lena led him to Maya's room, small, painted soft yellow, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and more of her artwork covering the walls. Ethan laid her down gently, tucked the blanket around her, placed the stuffed bunny within reach. Then he did something that made Lena's throat tighten. He brushed a gentle kiss against Maya's forehead and whispered, "Sleep well, little one." They left the room, pulling the door almost closed behind them. In the living room, silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. "Thank you," Lena said finally, "for coming. For the soup and the medicine and the bunny. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. She's my daughter. When she's sick, I want to be here. Even though she doesn't know that you're her father, especially because she doesn't know. When she finds out someday, I want her to have memories of me being there. Not for the big moments, maybe, but for the small ones. The times when she needed someone and I showed up." Lena sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know, for you to get bored after a few weeks, for the novelty to wear off." For you to realize that being a parent is hard and boring and repetitive and nothing like the fantasy you'd built in your head. Ethan sat down too, keeping a respectful distance. I know what I am, Lena. I know the things I've done, the people I've hurt. I'm not trying to pretend I'm a good person who made one mistake. I'm a bad person who's trying to do one good thing. And if it's not enough, if being a good father requires you to stop being who you are, then I'll figure it out. Because she's more important than any of it. The empire, the power, all of it. I didn't understand that before. I didn't understand what mattered. But I do now. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this transformation was real and lasting, but she'd learned the hard way that people rarely changed who they were at their core. Time will tell, she said. Words are easy. It's the actions that matter. Then watch what I do, Ethan said quietly. Not what I say. Judge me by my actions. He stood to leave and Lena walked him to the door. In the hallway, he paused. Lena? The money. The $15,000 that my brother stole, I want to pay it back. With interest. 6 years of interest. I don't want your money. It's not a gift. It's a debt. You lost your job because of me, because I didn't do my due diligence, didn't verify the facts, didn't give you the benefit of the doubt. Let me make that right at least. And what would I tell people when I suddenly have that kind of money? I run a small cleaning business, Ethan. Depositing $30,000 would raise questions I can't answer. Then let me help another way. Your business. Let me invest in it, legitimately. Help you expand, hire more people, get better equipment. You said you hire women who can't get jobs anywhere else. Let me help you help more of them. Lena studied his face, looking for the angle, the trap, the hidden agenda. But all she saw was earnestness. Why? She asked. Because I can. Because I should. Because you're doing something good in this city, and you shouldn't have to struggle to do it. I'll think about it, Lena said, which was more than she'd planned to give him. Ethan nodded and left, and Lena stood in her doorway for a long time after he was gone, trying to understand how her world had shifted so completely in just a few short weeks. The man she'd hated for 6 years was becoming someone she couldn't quite hate anymore, and that terrified her more than anything else could. 2 months passed, and the rhythm of their arrangement became almost comfortable, almost normal. Ethan showed up every Saturday without fail. He never pushed for more time than Lena allowed, never overstepped the boundaries she'd set. And slowly, against her better judgment, Lena found herself starting to trust him. It was a Thursday afternoon in late May when everything changed. Lena was at her office, a converted storefront in Bridgeport where she ran cruise cleaning services, going over invoices when her phone rang. The school. Her heart immediately jumped into her throat because schools never called in the middle of the day unless something was wrong. Miss Cruz, this is Principal Morrison at Evergreen Elementary. Maya is fine, but there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Lena was already grabbing her keys, her bag, heading for the door. Another parent became confrontational during pickup. He was asking questions about Maya, about who picks her up, about her family situation. When one of our staff members intervened, he became aggressive. We've called the police, but I wanted to let you know immediately. Lena's blood ran cold. What did he look like? Tall, maybe 6 feet, dark hair, tattoo on his neck, looked like a snake or something similar. He had an accent. Eastern European, maybe? Lena's knees went weak. She knew exactly who that was. Viktor Kozlov, one of Ethan's rivals. One of the men who would use anything, anyone, to get leverage. I'm on my way. Don't let Maya out of your sight. Don't let anyone near her who isn't me or on the approved pickup list. Of course, Ms. Cruz, should we be concerned about... I'll explain when I get there. Lena hung up and immediately called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Lena? Your world just found my daughter. Her voice was shaking with rage and terror. Someone came to her school, Viktor Kozlov or one of his people, asking questions, getting aggressive. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then Ethan's voice, colder than she'd ever heard it. Where are you? Going to the school now. I'll meet you there. Don't go inside until I arrive. And Lena? His voice softened slightly. She's going to be fine. I promise you. She's going to be fine. Your promises don't mean anything if your enemies are targeting my child. Lena hung up and drove to the school with her hands gripping the wheel so hard her knuckles went white. This was what she'd been afraid of. This was why she'd hesitated to let Ethan into their lives. Because men like him didn't have families. They had vulnerabilities. And Maya had just become the biggest vulnerability Ethan Varelli had ever had. When Lena pulled up to the school, there were 2 police cars in the parking lot and Ethan's black SUV. He was standing near the entrance, talking to Marcus and 2 other men she didn't recognize. When he saw her, he came over immediately. The police are taking statements. Victor's man is gone. Ran when someone called 911, but he got what he came for. Which is? Confirmation that you and Maya exist. That you matter to me. Ethan's jaw was tight. This is my fault. I should have been more careful, should have taken better precautions. You think? Lena's voice was sharp with fear and anger. I told you this would happen. I told you your world would come for her, and you promised it wouldn't. I know what I promised, and I'm going to fix this. You can't fix this, Ethan. You can't unring this bell. Victor knows about her now, which means everyone will know about her soon, which means she's a target. Then I protect her. I put security on her, on you, 24 hours a day. I make it clear to everyone in this city that touching either of you means death. That's your solution? Turn my daughter into a prisoner? Surround her with armed guards? Make her afraid to go to school, to the park, to live her life? Lena felt tears burning behind her eyes. This is exactly what I didn't want. This is why I stayed away from you for 6 years. What do you want me to do? Ethan's control was cracking, real emotion bleeding through. Tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. I want you to go back in time and not be who you are. I want you to be a normal man with a normal life who could be a father without putting his child in danger. But you can't do that, can you? No, Ethan said quietly. I can't, but I can end this. Victor is a problem that can be solved. Solved how? By killing him? By starting a war that will put even more people in danger? Lena shook her head. I need to see my daughter. She brushed past him and went into the school. Maya was in the principal's office, sitting in a chair that was too big for her, swinging her legs and coloring with crayons someone had given her. She looked up when Lena entered and her face brightened. Mama! Lena scooped her up, held her tight, breathed in the scent of her hair, and felt her small heartbeat against her chest. Safe. She was safe. Are you okay, baby? Did that man scare you? A little bit, Maya admitted. He was asking Miss Jenny about me, about who my daddy is. Miss Jenny told him to leave and then he got loud. But then the police came and he ran away. It was kind of exciting, actually. Exciting, because Maya was 6 years old and didn't understand that exciting could also mean dangerous, could mean the beginning of something terrible. You did good, baby. You stayed with your teacher like you're supposed to. Lena set her down, brushed her hair back from her face. We're going to go home now, okay? Okay. Is Ethan here? I saw his car outside. Of course she had. Maya noticed everything. Yes, he's here. Can he come home with us? I want to show him the picture I drew of the butterflies we saw at the park. Lena looked at Principal Morrison, who was watching this exchange with undisguised curiosity. They would need to have a conversation later, about safety measures, about approved pickup lists, about things Lena had hoped she'd never have to discuss. We'll see, baby. Let's go. Outside, Ethan was still there, talking intensely with Marcus. When he saw them, he broke off the conversation immediately and came over. His eyes scanned Maya from head to toe, checking for any sign of harm. Hey, Maya, you okay? I'm fine. It was exciting. The police came and everything. She was proud, telling the story like it was an adventure rather than a threat. Ethan crouched down to her level. I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad you stayed with your teacher. That was very smart. Mama says I'm smart like her. Your mama is absolutely right. Ethan looked up at Lena. We need to talk about what happens next. Not here, not in front of her. Then let me come back to your apartment, please. We need to figure this out. Lena wanted to say no, wanted to take Maya and run, just like she'd threatened, disappear into a new life in a new city where Ethan Varelli's world couldn't touch them. But she also knew that running wouldn't solve this. Victor knew about Maya now. That information wouldn't disappear just because they did, and she couldn't run every time danger appeared. That wasn't a life. That was just a different kind of prison. Fine. But Maya comes first. Whatever conversation we have, she doesn't hear it. Agreed. They drove separately back to Lena's apartment. Ethan's SUV followed her car at a discreet distance, but Lena noticed two other cars she didn't recognize also following. Security. Ethan had already deployed his people, creating a protective bubble around them, whether she'd agreed to it or not. At the apartment, Maya immediately wanted to show Ethan her butterfly drawing. He sat on the floor with her, giving her his full attention, asking questions about each butterfly's colors and patterns, while Lena made coffee in the kitchen and tried to calm her racing heart. This was her worst nightmare. The two worlds she'd tried so hard to keep separate had just crashed into each other, and there was no putting them back apart. After 20 minutes, Lena announced it was time for Maya's favorite TV show. The little girl protested only briefly before settling on the couch with Mr. Trunks and her blanket, absorbed in the animated adventures on screen. Lena and Ethan went into the kitchen. She closed the door most of the way, keeping Maya visible but out of earshot. "Talk," she said. "Victor is trying to get leverage. He's been pushing into territory on the south side that I control. This is him testing my defenses, seeing if he can find a weakness." Ethan's voice was low, controlled. "He found one." "Me and Maya." "Yes, but it's not going to work the way he thinks it will." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to make an example. I'm going to make it very clear to Victor and everyone else in this city that you and Maya are untouchable. That even looking at either of you the wrong way is a death sentence." Lena set down her coffee cup. "And how many people die to send that message?" "As many as necessary." "Listen to yourself. You're talking about starting a war, about killing people. And for what? To protect us? We wouldn't need protection if you weren't in our lives." "That's true," Ethan said quietly. "But I'm in your lives now, and that's not going to change. So we can either handle this the right way, or we can let Victor think he has power over me. And if I let him think that, he will use it. He will escalate, and Maya will be in more danger, not less." "I hate this," Lena whispered. "I hate everything about this." "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorrier than I have words for. But we have to deal with reality, not with what we wish things were." Lena looked through the doorway at Maya, safe and happy, watching cartoons and completely unaware that her life had just fundamentally changed. "What do you want to do?" "Short term, security. I have people outside right now. They'll stay there, watching the building, making sure no one approaches who shouldn't. I'll have someone escort Maya to and from school, someone who looks like a normal parent, not obviously security. She'll ask questions. So we tell her you hired someone to help out, a driver, someone to make life easier. And long term?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Long term, I end the threat. I deal with Victor in a way that makes sure he never comes near you again. And I make sure everyone else knows that the same consequences apply to them. By killing him, if necessary. And if it starts a war, if Victor's people retaliate, then I win the war, quickly, decisively, so it never happens again." Lena closed her eyes. This was the man she'd been afraid of, not the gentle person who read stories to Maya and brought soup when she was sick. This was Ethan Varelli, crime boss, who solved problems with violence and power. "I need a guarantee," she said. "Name it." "That Maya stays out of it, completely. Whatever you do, wherever this goes, she doesn't see it, doesn't know about it. Her life stays as normal as possible. You have my word." Your word? And what else? Because words don't mean much in your world, do they?" Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. He set it on the kitchen counter between them. Lena opened it warily. Inside was a key and a piece of paper with an address. "What is this?" "A house. In your name. In a quiet suburb about an hour outside the city. Fully paid for. If anything happens to me, if things go wrong, if you need to disappear, it's there. Untraceable. Clean. With enough money and an account to keep you and Maya comfortable for years." Lena stared at the key. "You did this already? Before today?" "I did it a month ago, the day after I first met Maya, because I knew this was a possibility. and I wanted you to have options. A month ago, Lena repeated, you were already planning for this. I was planning for every contingency. It's what I do. Lena picked up the key, felt its weight in her palm. An escape route, a safety net, proof that Ethan had been thinking about her and Maya's safety long before Victor had forced the issue. Okay, she said finally. Okay, do what you need to do. But Ethan? She looked directly at him. If this gets Maya hurt, if your war touches her in any way, I'm gone. And I'll use this house to disappear so completely you'll never find us. We clear? Crystal clear. And one more thing. When this is over, when Victor is dealt with and the threat is gone, we tell her the truth. About who you are to her. No more secrets, no more pretending you're just a friend. If she's going to be in danger because of you, she deserves to know why. Ethan's throat worked. Agreed. When it's safe, we tell her everything. They stood there in the small kitchen, separated by 2 feet of space and 6 years of history and a chasm of differences that might never be bridged. But in that moment, they had an understanding, a shared purpose. Protect Maya, whatever it took. From the living room, Maya called out, Mama, Ethan, come watch. The butterflies are having a race. Lena managed a smile. Coming, baby. They went into the living room, and Maya immediately scooted over on the couch to make room for both of them. Ethan sat on one side, Lena on the other, and Maya in the middle, pointing at the TV and explaining the plot of the show with the earnest intensity of a child who believed every story mattered. And for 30 minutes, they were just 3 people watching cartoons. Not a crime boss and his accidental family, not a mother trying to protect her child from a dangerous world. Just 3 people, together, pretending that normal was possible. But when the show ended and Ethan stood to leave, Lena walked him to the door and the reality came crashing back. How long? She asked quietly. How long until this is over? A week, maybe 2. Victor needs to be handled carefully. Publicly enough that everyone gets the message, but quietly enough that it doesn't bring unwanted attention from the authorities. People are going to die. Yes, Ethan said, but Maya won't be one of them. I promise you that. After he left, Lena locked the door and stood there for a long moment, her forehead pressed against the wood. She'd spent 6 years building a safe life for her daughter, 6 years creating distance from violence and danger. And in 2 months, Ethan had shattered all of that. Not intentionally, maybe not even avoidably, but shattered nonetheless. Mama? Maya's voice came from behind her. Why do you look sad? Lena turned and forced a smile. I'm not sad, baby, just tired. Is it because of the scary man at school? A little bit, but don't worry, Ethan and I are going to make sure nothing like that happens again. Maya thought about this. Ethan is good at taking care of people. He takes care of you and me, right? Out of the mouths of babes. Yes, baby, he does. Then we don't have to be scared, because Ethan won't let bad things happen to us. Lena wished she had her daughter's faith, wished she could believe that Ethan's protection was enough, that his power could keep them safe from the darkness he himself had brought into their lives. But she was an adult, who'd learned the hard way that sometimes the people who protected you were also the people you needed protection from. The next morning, Lena found out what Ethan meant by security. There was a woman waiting outside her building, early 30s, athletic build, friendly smile. She introduced herself as Sarah and explained that she'd been hired to help with school pickups and errands. Maya took to her immediately, which Lena knew was the point. Sarah was professional but warm, clearly trained but not obviously dangerous. The perfect camouflage. Over the next week, Lena noticed other changes. The bodega owner on her corner suddenly became extra attentive, watching the street more carefully. The building superintendent mentioned he'd upgraded the locks on all the doors. A new family moved into the apartment across the hall, except Lena was pretty sure they weren't actually a family, just 2 of Ethan's people keeping watch. She was living in a protective bubble, carefully constructed and maintained. It should have made her feel safe. Instead, it made her feel trapped. On Wednesday, Marcus appeared at her office. Lena had met him a few times now, Ethan's head of security, the silent shadow who was always nearby. But this was the first time he'd come to see her directly. Ms. Cruz, do you have a moment? Lena gestured to the chair across from her desk. What's happened? Nothing. I wanted to update you on the situation. Victor has made contact. He wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? Territory, money, the usual things men like him negotiate. He's offering to back off in exchange for concessions. And Ethan is refusing because concessions would signal weakness, and weakness would make you and Maya more vulnerable, not less. Lena rubbed her temples. So we're at a stalemate. Not quite. Mr. Varelli has a plan, but he wanted me to explain it to you first, to make sure you understood what was going to happen. I'm listening. Marcus laid out the plan with clinical precision. Ethan was going to force Victor's hand by hitting his operations simultaneously across the city. Not violence against Victor himself, that would be too obvious, would invite retaliation, but a systematic dismantling of his revenue streams, his gambling operations, his drug distribution, his protection rackets, everything that made Victor powerful. It's death by 1,000 cuts, Marcus explained. Victor will have to respond, and when he does, he'll make a mistake. And that's when Mr. Varelli will end this permanently. And by end this permanently, you mean, I mean Victor will no longer be a concern for anyone. Lena felt sick. When does this start? It already has. 3 of Victor's gambling operations were shut down last night. 2 more will go tonight. By the end of the week, he'll be hemorrhaging money and influence. And when he figures out Ethan is behind it? He already knows. That's the point. Mr. Varelli wants him to know. Wants him angry and desperate and likely to do something stupid. Something stupid that could put Maya in danger. No. Marcus's voice was firm. Maya is the most protected person in Chicago right now. There are eyes on her every second she's out of this building. Ethan has made it very clear, if anything happens to her, everyone responsible dies. Not just Victor. Everyone. His lieutenants. His soldiers. Their families. Everyone. The casual way Marcus said it made Lena's blood run cold. You're talking about murdering children. I'm talking about deterrence. The threat is what matters. The belief that Ethan will do whatever it takes. That belief is what keeps Maya safe. This is insane. All of this is insane. Maybe, Marcus agreed, but it's also effective. Victor won't touch her. He can't. The cost is too high. After Marcus left, Lena sat in her office and tried to process what her life had become. She was at the center of a criminal war. Her daughter was the prize that both sides were fighting to protect or exploit, and the only thing standing between them and disaster was Ethan's reputation for ruthless violence. She should take Maya and run, should use that key Ethan had given her, disappear to that house in the suburbs, start over somewhere new. But another part of her, the part that had survived 6 years alone, that had built a business from nothing, that had learned to be strong when strength was the only option, that part wanted to stay, wanted to see this through, wanted to believe that maybe, somehow, Ethan could actually protect them. That night, Ethan called, not texted, called, which was unusual. How's Maya? She's fine, asleep. Sarah picked her up from school, and apparently they made cookies together before I got home. Oh, Sarah's good with kids. I made sure of that. I met with Marcus today. He told me about your plan. And I think you're playing with fire. If this goes wrong, it won't go wrong, Lena. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to handle men like Victor. You're so certain, so confident. What if you're wrong? There was a pause. Then Ethan said quietly, Then I made sure you have a way out. The house. The money. The clean identity papers that are in a safety deposit box at the bank on Western Avenue. Box 2847. The key is taped under the drawer in your nightstand. Lena went to her bedroom, opened the nightstand drawer, felt underneath. Sure enough, there was a small key taped there. She hadn't even known it was there. How did you? I have people who can get into anywhere. The important thing is you have options. If I fail, if something happens to me, you take Maya and you run. You use everything I have given you and you build a new life somewhere he can never find you. You're talking like you might not make it through this. I'm talking like a man who knows that preparation is the difference between survival and death, and I'm preparing for every contingency. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, key in hand, and felt the weight of everything Ethan had done. The house, the money, the identity papers, He'd been building her a life raft even while trying to convince her to stay on the sinking ship with him. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. Really, not the easy answer about Maya being your daughter, the real answer. Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, because for the first time in my life, I have something worth protecting. Something that matters more than power, or money, or control. And I know what I am. I know I'm probably going to screw this up eventually, but until I do, I'm going to make damn sure that you and Maya are safe. Even if that means protecting you from me. That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. Lena almost smiled. Ethan? Yeah? Don't die. Maya doesn't know you're her father yet, but she cares about you, and if you die protecting us, she'll never understand why. And that will hurt her. I'm not planning on dying. No one ever plans on it. I'll be careful, I promise. After they hung up, Lena lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window. Somewhere out there, Ethan was orchestrating a war. Somewhere out there, Victor was plotting his revenge. And somewhere between them was a little girl who just wanted her friend Ethan to come to the park on Saturday and push her on the swings. The collision of those two worlds was inevitable. Lena just hoped they all survived it. Saturday came, and with it the familiar routine of the park. Lena almost canceled. The world felt too dangerous now, too unpredictable. But Maya had been asking about Ethan all week, and Lena couldn't bring herself to take away one of the few constants in her daughter's life. Sarah drove them, her eyes constantly scanning the streets, one hand never far from the concealed weapon Lena now knew she carried. The park was different too. Lena recognized at least 3 of Ethan's people positioned around the perimeter, pretending to be joggers, dog walkers, parents with their own children. An invisible army creating a buffer between Maya and the world. Ethan was already there, sitting on their usual bench. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. When he saw them, though, his face transformed the way it always did when he saw Maya, like she was sunlight breaking through clouds. "Ethan!" Maya ran to him, and he caught her easily, lifting her up in a hug that made Lena's throat tight. "Hey, little one. I missed you. I missed you, too. Mama said we could feed the ducks today. Did you bring the special duck food?" "I did." He set her down and pulled a bag from his jacket pocket. "Got it from the same place your mom recommended." They walked to the pond, Maya between them, chattering about school and the book Sarah had read to her and the butterflies she'd seen on the way to the car. Normal things, beautiful things, the kind of ordinary magic that Lena would kill to protect. At the pond, Maya threw handfuls of food to the ducks, laughing when they quacked and fought over the pieces. Ethan crouched beside her, pointing out different types of ducks, teaching her their names: mallards, wood ducks, a pair of Canadian geese. Lena stood a few feet away, watching them, and felt her heart breaking and healing at the same time. This was what Maya had been missing her whole life. Not money or power or protection, just this. A father who paid attention, who made her feel like she mattered, who treated her childhood wonder like it was the most important thing in the world. "Mama, look! That baby duck is following its mama everywhere." "I see, sweetheart. That's what I do with you. I follow you everywhere." Maya threw more food, then looked up at Ethan. "Do you have a mama, Ethan?" Lena saw the pain flash across his face. "I did. She died a long time ago." "Oh, that's sad. I'm sorry." Maya's voice held the simple empathy of a child who understood loss even if she didn't fully comprehend death. "Was she nice?" "She was very nice. She would have loved you." "Really? How do you know?" "Because you're smart and kind and brave, and those were the things she loved most in people." Maya considered this, then slipped her small hand into Ethan's. "I wish I could have met her." Ethan looked down at their joined hands like he'd been given something precious. "Me too, Maya. Me too." They stayed at the park for 2 hours, longer than usual. Ethan seemed reluctant to leave, and Lena understood why. In the park, they could pretend. They could be a normal family doing normal things. Outside the park, Ethan was fighting a war. And inside that war, every moment of peace was borrowed time. When it was finally time to go, Maya hugged Ethan goodbye. Then she said something that made both adults freeze. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you my daddy?" The world stopped. Lena's heart stopped. Ethan's face went completely blank, and for a moment he looked utterly lost. Lena stepped forward. "Maya, honey, why would you ask that?" "Because Sophie at school said her daddy has the same eyes as her, gray and blue. And Ethan has eyes like mine. And he comes to see us every week. And he's nice to you, Mama. And he brings me presents and reads me stories." She looked between them, her expression serious. "I'm not a baby. I can tell when grown-ups are keeping secrets." Lena looked at Ethan, panicked. They'd agreed to wait, agreed to tell her when she was older, when the danger had passed, when she could understand the complexity of who Ethan was. But Maya was standing there, 6 years old, and asking the question that deserved an honest answer. Ethan knelt down so he was at Maya's eye level. His hands were shaking slightly. "Would you like it if I was your daddy?" "I don't know," Maya said honestly. "I don't know what having a daddy is like, but I think I'd like it if you were. Because I like you. And you make Mama smile sometimes, even when she's trying not to." Ethan looked at Lena, a question in his eyes. She wanted to say no, wanted to stick to the plan. But she also knew her daughter. Maya had asked the question. She deserved the truth. Lena nodded slightly. Ethan took a deep breath. "Yes, Maya, I'm your daddy. I'm sorry I wasn't there before. I'm sorry I missed so much of your life. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be here now. For you and your mama. If that's okay with you." Maya tilted her head, studying him with that intense way children had of looking right through artifice to truth. "Why weren't you there before?" "Because I made a mistake. A big one. I didn't know about you at first, and when I found out, I didn't know how to fix what I'd done wrong. But I'm trying now. I'm trying to be better." "Okay," Maya said simply. Then she hugged him again, her small arms tight around his neck. "I'm glad you're my daddy. Even if you made mistakes. Mama says everyone makes mistakes. She says what matters is if you try to fix them." Over Maya's shoulder, Ethan met Lena's eyes. There were tears in his, actual tears, and Lena felt her own eyes burning. "Your mama is very smart," Ethan said, his voice rough. When they finally separated, Maya had more questions. A million questions pouring out in the unstoppable stream of childhood curiosity. Where did he live? What was his favorite color? Did he like butterflies? Could he come over for dinner sometime? Would he teach her to ride a bike? Did he have any other kids? Ethan answered each question patiently, honestly, painting a picture of himself that was carefully edited but not dishonest. Yes, he'd love to teach her to ride a bike. No, she was his only child. His favorite color was blue. He lived in a big building downtown. And yes, butterflies were wonderful. He didn't mention that the big building downtown was a fortress. That his favorite color was blue because it was the color of his mother's eyes, the same eyes Maya had inherited. That he would teach her to ride a bike in a private park surrounded by armed security. That she was his only child, but he had an empire that demanded his attention every day. Some truths could wait. When Sarah finally drove them home, Maya talked the entire way about Ethan being her daddy. How she couldn't wait to tell Sophie at school. How she was going to draw him a picture of a family with all three of them together. How maybe they could all go to the zoo next weekend. Lena listened to her daughter's joy and felt the weight of what they'd done. Maya knew now. There was no going back from this. And if Ethan failed, if Victor won, if this war claimed him, Maya would lose a father she'd only just found. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena's phone rang. "I'm sorry," Ethan said immediately. "I know we were supposed to wait, but when she asked, I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't—" "It's okay," Lena interrupted. "She deserved to know. And she's right. She's not a baby. She was going to figure it out eventually." "How is she?" "Happy. Talking about you nonstop. Already planning our next family outing." "Family," Ethan repeated softly. "I have a family." "Yes, you do. Which means you have to survive this thing with Victor. You understand that, right? You can't die now. She just found you." "I'm not going to die, Lena. I promise." "You can't promise that. No one can." "Then I'll do everything in my power to make sure I keep it, because I just got to hear my daughter call me daddy, and I'll be damned if I don't get to hear it again. The next few days were tense. Ethan's systematic dismantling of Victor's operations was working. According to Marcus, who kept Lena updated whether she wanted to be or not, Victor was hemorrhaging money and influence. His people were deserting him. His suppliers were cutting him off. He was being strangled economically, and everyone in Chicago's underworld was watching it happen, which meant Victor was desperate, and desperate men were dangerous. On Tuesday, Lena was closing up her office when her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Cruz?" The voice was accented, smooth, dangerous. "We haven't met. My name is Victor Kozlov." Lena's blood turned to ice. "How did you get this number?" "The same way I got your address, your daughter's school, the route you take to work every morning. I know everything about you, Ms. Cruz, everything." "If you touch my daughter..." "I have no interest in hurting children. I'm not a monster." Victor's voice was almost pleasant. "I'm a businessman. And Ethan Varelli is costing me a great deal of business. I thought perhaps you could convince him to be more reasonable." "I'm not part of Ethan's business." "No, but you're his weakness. You and the little girl. He's never had a weakness before. It's fascinating to watch." Lena looked around her office, suddenly paranoid. Was Victor watching her right now? Did he have people outside? "What do you want?" "A meeting. With Ethan. Neutral ground, just the two of us. We settle this like civilized men instead of destroying half the city in the process." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he'll listen to you. Tell him Thursday night, the old warehouse on Halstead and 31st, midnight. Come alone. If I see any of his people, the deal is off, and we do this the hard way. And if he doesn't come, then I start hitting back. And I won't be as careful about collateral damage as he's been. Tell him, Ms. Cruz, tell him I'm offering him a way out. Whether he takes it is up to him." The line went dead. Lena sat there for a full minute, her heart pounding, before she called Ethan. "Victor just called me. On my personal cell phone." There was a moment of dangerous silence, then, "What did he say?" She repeated the conversation word for word. When she finished, Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he might have hung up. "Ethan? It's a trap, obviously. Then you're not going. I have to go. If I don't, he'll escalate. And his version of escalation might involve you or Maya. So you walk into a trap? Alone? That's your plan?" "I walk into a trap that I'm prepared for. There's a difference." "Ethan, please, there has to be another way." "There isn't. This is how these things end, Lena. One way or another, and I'd rather control when and where it happens. At least take Marcus. Take backup. If I take backup, Victor will know, and then he'll disappear, and we'll be right back where we started, except he'll be more desperate and more dangerous." Lena pressed her hand to her forehead, fighting down panic. "I can't lose you. Maya can't lose you. Not now. Not when she just found you." "You won't. I've been doing this longer than Victor has been in Chicago. I know how to handle myself." "Everyone thinks they know how to handle themselves until they're wrong." "Then trust that I know what I'm doing. And if I'm wrong, you have everything you need to disappear. The house, the money, the papers. You use them, and you keep Maya safe. That's what matters." "You matter," Lena said, and realized she meant it. Somewhere in the past 3 months, Ethan Varelli had stopped being the man she hated and started being someone she cared about. Someone she might even love, if she let herself. "You matter to both of us." She heard him take a shaky breath. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a very long time. Don't let it go to your head. Just be careful, be smart, and come back." "I will. I promise." Thursday came too quickly. Lena spent the day in a fog of anxiety, going through the motions of work while her mind was on Ethan and midnight and the warehouse on Halstead, where everything would either end or escalate beyond control. That evening, Ethan called. "I'm going to come by to say goodbye to Maya, just in case." "Don't say that. Don't even think it." "I'm being realistic. If something happens to me, nothing is going to happen to you." "Lena? No. You don't get to do this. You don't get to come here and say goodbye to her like you're not coming back. You come here and you tell her you'll see her Saturday at the park like always. You understand me?" Another shaky breath. "Okay, you're right. Saturday at the park." He arrived an hour later. Maya launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door, and he caught her easily, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Daddy, you're early. It's not Saturday yet." The word daddy clearly still affected him. His eyes closed briefly, savoring it. "I know. I just wanted to see you. Is that okay?" "Yes. I'm drawing you a picture. Want to see?" She dragged him to the kitchen table where her artwork was spread out. It was a family portrait, stick figures but recognizable. A tall figure labeled Daddy, a medium figure labeled Mama, and a small figure labeled Me in the middle, all three holding hands. Ethan stared at it for a long time. "This is beautiful, Maya. Can I keep it?" "Yes, I made it for you. See, we're all together. That's what families do. They stay together." Ethan looked at Lena over Maya's head, and she saw everything he wasn't saying, the fear, the determination, the desperate hope that he would survive this night and make that picture true. "That's right, baby," Lena said softly. "Families stay together." Ethan stayed for dinner. They ordered pizza, Maya's favorite, and sat around Lena's small kitchen table like a normal family. Maya talked about school, about her friends, about the butterfly project they were doing in science class. Ethan listened to every word like it mattered more than empires or wars, or the meeting that waited for him at midnight. When it was time for bed, he read Maya her favorite story, the one about the brave little girl going on adventures. Maya fell asleep halfway through, her hand clutching Mr. Trunks, her face peaceful. Ethan kissed her forehead gently. "I love you, Maya, so much." The little girl smiled in her sleep but didn't wake. In the hallway, Lena stopped him. "That's the first time you've said it out loud." "I know. I wanted to make sure I said it. Before tonight." "You're coming back? You're going to say it to her again on Saturday?" "Yes," Ethan agreed. "Saturday." At the door, he paused. "Lena, if something goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, tell her I loved her from the moment I saw her photograph. Tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there from the beginning, and tell her that meeting her was the best thing that ever happened to me." Lena grabbed his jacket, pulled him close. "You tell her yourself. On Saturday. At the park. When you push her on the swings and feed the ducks and listen to her talk about butterflies, you tell her yourself." For a moment they just stood there, inches apart, and Lena saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not just fear or determination. Something softer. Something that looked like longing. "Lena, He stopped, seemed to struggle with words. "I need to tell you something before I go." "Then tell me Saturday. When you come back, tell me then." He nodded slowly. "Saturday? At the park." "Saturday at the park," Lena repeated, like saying it enough times would make it true. Ethan left, and Lena locked the door behind him. Then she went to her bedroom, pulled out the key he'd given her, and stared at it. Her escape route, her backup plan, the evidence that Ethan had been planning for his own death, even while promising to survive. She didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed watching the hours tick by on her clock. 11, 11:30, midnight. Somewhere across the city, Ethan was walking into a warehouse to meet a man who wanted him dead. Somewhere in the darkness, the confrontation that would determine all their futures was happening, and all Lena could do was wait. At 12:15, her phone rang. Marcus. "Is he—" Lena couldn't finish the sentence. "He's fine. It's done. Victor is no longer a problem." Relief flooded through her so intensely she thought she might be sick. "What happened?" "Mr. Varelli will tell you himself. He's on his way to you now." "He's coming here? Now?" "He insisted. Said he had something he needed to say. That he'd promised to tell you on Saturday, but he couldn't wait." Marcus hung up, and Lena sat in her dark bedroom, her heart racing for entirely different reasons now. Ethan was alive. He was safe. He was coming here. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on her door. Lena checked the peephole, saw Ethan standing in the hallway, and opened the door. He looked exhausted. There was blood on his shirt, not his, she hoped, and his hair was disheveled. But he was alive. Whole. Here. "You came back," she whispered. "I promised I would." He stepped inside and Lena closed the door behind him. They stood in her small entryway, the only light coming from the street lamps outside. Is it really over, Victor? It's over. He's gone. His people have either scattered or agreed to work for me. The threat is eliminated. Then Maya is safe. Maya is safe. You're both safe. I made sure of it. Lena felt tears burning behind her eyes. Thank you for keeping your promise, for coming back. Lena, I need to tell you something. That thing I was going to say before. I can't wait until Saturday. Okay. Ethan took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice was raw with emotion. 6 years ago, I destroyed your life. I fired you unjustly. I sent you away pregnant and alone. I cost you your mother's last months. I made you struggle and suffer and fight for everything you have, and I can never make up for that. Never. Ethan, let me finish, please. He stepped closer. But meeting Maya changed everything. She made me want to be better. Made me realize that all the power and money and control in the world means nothing if you don't have something real to care about. And then I got to know you, really know you. Not the scared girl I dismissed 6 years ago, but the woman you became. Strong and brave and fierce. A survivor who built something beautiful from nothing. He reached out, hesitant, and touched her face gently. I'm falling in love with you, Lena. Maybe I already have. And I know I have no right to say that. I know I don't deserve you or your forgiveness or your trust. But I needed you to know. Before Saturday, before another day passed, I needed you to know that you matter to me, not just as Maya's mother, but as yourself. Lena stared at him, her heart in her throat. She should pull away, should protect herself, should remember all the reasons why this man was dangerous, why loving him was a terrible idea, why she should take Maya and run as far as possible. Instead, she kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, testing, then deeper, more urgent, 6 years of anger and pain and longing pouring into that connection. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I don't know if I love you yet, Lena said honestly. I don't know if I can trust this, but I want to try. For Maya, for us. I want to see if we can be a real family. We can, Ethan said fiercely. I'll make sure we can. I'll be better. I'll be the man you and Maya deserve. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be there, consistently, honestly. No more secrets, no more lies. If we do this, we do it for real. For real, Ethan agreed, starting now. They stood there in her dark apartment, holding each other, and for the first time in 6 years, Lena felt something she'd thought she'd lost forever. Hope. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that felt like a promise. Maya woke up early, bouncing into Lena's room with the energy only 6-year-olds possessed. Mama, it's Saturday! We get to see Daddy at the park! Lena smiled, still getting used to hearing her daughter say that word so naturally. I know, baby, but it's only 7 in the morning. The park isn't until 2 o'clock. That's so far away. Maya flopped dramatically onto the bed. Can we call him, just to say good morning? Before Lena could answer, her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Good morning. Is it too early to come over? I brought breakfast. Lena looked at Maya's expectant face and typed back. Come over. Someone here is very eager to see you. 15 minutes later, Ethan knocked on the door carrying bags from Maya's favorite bakery. When Lena opened it, he looked different than he had Thursday night. Lighter, somehow. Like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Daddy! Maya launched herself at him, and he caught her easily, spinning her around. Good morning, princess. Did you miss me? So much. It's been forever. It's been 2 days, Lena said, but she was smiling. 2 days is forever when you're 6, Ethan said seriously, setting Maya down. He looked at Lena, and something passed between them. An understanding, a promise. I brought chocolate croissants, and those fruit Danish things you like. They ate breakfast together at the kitchen table, Maya chattering about a dream she'd had about butterflies that could talk. Ethan listened with complete attention, asking questions, making her laugh, and Lena watched them and felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like peace. After breakfast, Maya wanted to show Ethan her room properly. He'd only seen it briefly when she was sick. She dragged him in, pointing out every drawing on the walls, every stuffed animal, the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling. And this is Mr. Trunks, she said, holding up the elephant. He's my favorite because you gave him to me. I'm glad he's your favorite. And this is the bunny you brought when I was sick. I named him Snowball because he's white like snow. Snowball is a perfect name. Maya climbed onto her bed, patted the space beside her. Daddy, can I ask you something? Ethan sat down carefully. Of course. Are you going to live with us now, since you're my daddy? Lena, standing in the doorway, saw Ethan's expression shift. Uncertainty, hope, fear. He looked at her, silently asking what he should say. Lena stepped into the room. Maya, honey, Daddy and I need to talk about things like that. Adult things. It's complicated. Why is it complicated? You like each other, I can tell, and families live together. Sophie's mama and daddy live together. So do Emma's. Some families live together, Lena said gently, and some families live in different places but still love each other just as much. What matters isn't where everyone sleeps. What matters is that we care about each other and spend time together. Maya thought about this, her face serious. But I want us all to be together, all the time. Is that bad? No, baby, that's not bad at all. Ethan's voice was soft. And maybe someday we will all live together. But your mama is right. We need to figure out the grown-up stuff first. Can you be patient with us while we do that? I guess so. But you promise you'll still come see me, even if you don't live here. I promise, every Saturday at the park. And maybe some other days too, if your mama says it's okay. Maya seemed satisfied with this answer. She hugged Ethan tightly, then scrambled off the bed to go play with her toys in the living room. Alone in Maya's room, Ethan and Lena stood in awkward silence. She has a point, Ethan said finally, about us being together. We just started this. Whatever this is, we can't rush into living together just because Maya wants us to. I know, but for what it's worth, I want it too. I want to wake up here every morning, want to have breakfast at that tiny table, want to read Maya bedtime stories every night instead of just sometimes. Lena's heart was doing complicated things. And what about your world, your business, the things you do that I don't ask about because I don't want to know the details? Ethan was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about that, about what I told you Thursday night, about wanting to be better. Thinking isn't the same as doing. I know, that's why I've made some changes, real changes. He pulled out his phone, showed her a document. I'm transferring most of my operations to legitimate businesses, real estate, investments, consulting, the illegal stuff. I'm selling it off to people who won't bring the kind of heat that puts you and Maya at risk. Lena stared at the document, barely comprehending what she was reading. You're getting out? Of the criminal side? Getting out isn't quite accurate. I'll still have connections, still have influence, but I'm shifting the focus, making myself less of a target, making it so that being with me doesn't mean Maya grows up surrounded by violence and danger. Ethan, that's a huge change. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. My empire doesn't mean anything if I lose the two of you. And I almost did lose you. To my own stupidity 6 years ago, to Victor, to the life I was living. I'm not making that mistake again. Lena felt tears threatening. This is really what you want? Not just what you think I want to hear. It's what I want. What I need. I spent 15 years building power and I've never been happy. 3 months with you and Maya, and I finally understand what I was missing. I don't need an empire. I need a family. Lena crossed the small room, took his hands in hers. This won't be easy. Changing your whole life. You might resent it someday. Resent us for making you give up who you were. I won't. Because who I was empty. And who I'm becoming, who you and Maya are helping me become, that's real. That matters. Okay, Lena said softly. Then we try. We take it slow, we figure it out together, and we see where it goes. But Ethan, if you ever lie to me again, if you ever bring danger to Maya's door again, if you ever go back on this promise to change, I'm gone. And I'll take her somewhere you'll never find us. We clear? Crystal clear. Just she kissed him then, soft and sweet, a seal on promises made and futures hoped for. From the living room, Maya's voice called out, "Are you guys kissing in there? That's what mamas and daddies do in movies." They broke apart, laughing. "We're coming, baby," Lena called back. The park that afternoon was perfect. Warm sun, clear skies, the kind of weather that made everything feel possible. Maya ran ahead to the playground while Lena and Ethan walked slowly behind, their hands loosely intertwined. "I talked to Marcus this morning," Ethan said. "Told him about the changes I'm making. He's staying on, but in a different capacity. Head of security for my legitimate operations." "How did he take it?" "Better than I expected. I think he's tired too. Tired of the violence, ready for something quieter." "And your brother? Daniel? The one who caused all this in the first place?" Ethan's expression hardened slightly. "He's being dealt with. Not violently," he added quickly, seeing Lena's face. "But he's out. Cut off from the family money, from the business, from everything. He stole from you, destroyed your life out of his own greed. That has consequences." "Good," Lena said simply. "He deserves consequences." They reached the playground where Maya was already on the swings. "Daddy, push me!" Ethan went to push her, and Lena sat on a nearby bench, watching them. Her daughter and her... what? Boyfriend felt too juvenile. Partner felt too formal. The father of her child and the man she was falling in love with. That was closer to the truth. An older woman sat down on the bench beside her. "Beautiful family you have," Lena smiled. "Thank you. Your husband is wonderful with her. You can tell he adores her." "He's not my husband. Not yet, anyway." The words came out before Lena could stop them. The woman smiled knowingly. "But he will be, I think. I can see it in the way he looks at you both. Like you're his whole world." After the woman left, Lena sat with those words. Marriage. She hadn't let herself think that far ahead, but watching Ethan with Maya, seeing how gentle he was, how patient, how completely devoted, she could imagine it. A future where they were a real family, where Maya had both her parents, where Lena wasn't doing everything alone. It was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm. Ethan came over 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to spend time with Maya. He read her bedtime stories, helped with homework, attended a school play where she was a butterfly in the chorus. He and Lena went on actual dates, dinners at quiet restaurants, walks along the lakefront, a concert at the symphony. They talked about everything, her dreams for her business, his plans for transitioning to legitimate work, their fears about being good parents, their hopes for the future. And slowly, carefully, they learned to trust each other, learned to be a team instead of 2 people navigating around each other. One evening in late June, Ethan showed up with Marcus and a truck full of furniture. "What is all this?" Lena asked, standing in her doorway in confusion. "Your business is expanding, right? You told me you'd hired 3 more women last month." "Yes, but what does that have to do with—" "You need a proper office, not that converted storefront. A real space where you can train people, store equipment, manage schedules." Ethan gestured to the truck. "I found a building in Bridgeport, 3 stories. First floor can be the office and training center. Second floor has apartments where some of your employees could live if they need temporary housing. Third floor is yours, apartment space you can rent out or use however you want." Lena stared at him. "Ethan, that's too much. I can't accept—" "It's not a gift. It's an investment, a legitimate business investment with proper contracts and everything. Marcus has the paperwork." He smiled slightly. "I told you I wanted to help you expand, help you hire more women who need a second chance. Let me do this, please." Lena looked at the truck, at Marcus holding a folder of documents, at Ethan's hopeful expression. "On one condition, my name on the deed, my business, you're an investor, not an owner." "Deal." Maya, who'd been watching this exchange with wide eyes, tugged on Lena's shirt. "Mama, does this mean Daddy is helping us?" "Yes, baby. Daddy is helping us." "Good. Because that's what families do. They help each other." The building was perfect. Better than perfect. Lena moved her business in over the next month, and with the additional space and resources, cruise cleaning services grew from 12 employees to 25. Women who'd been overlooked, dismissed, discarded by society found jobs and dignity and a second chance. One of the new hires was a woman named Rosa, who'd lost her previous job because she'd been in an abusive relationship and her ex-boyfriend had stalked her at work. Lena hired her on the spot, and Ethan quietly arranged for security to make sure the ex-boyfriend knew better than to try anything. "You're doing good work here," Ethan said one evening, watching Lena train a new group of employees. Really good work. So are you, Lena said. Marcus told me about the youth center you're funding on the south side. Ethan shrugged. Kids need safe places to go after school. Places that aren't street corners where my old associates recruit them. Seemed like a good investment. An investment in what? There's no profit in a youth center. An investment in the future, in making this city better instead of bleeding it dry. He looked at her seriously. You changed me, Lena. You and Maya. Made me see what actually matters. In August, Maya started first grade. Ethan was there for her first day, holding her hand as they walked into the school, taking pictures of her in her new backpack. He'd become a fixture in her life. At school events, at birthday parties, at the park every Saturday without fail. The other parents had started treating them like a normal family, inviting all three of them to barbecues and play dates, making assumptions about their relationship that Lena didn't bother to correct. One Saturday in September, they were at the park feeding the ducks when Maya suddenly asked, "Daddy, why don't you live with us?" Ethan and Lena exchanged glances. They'd been dancing around this question for months. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Ethan started. "No, it's not," Maya said with the blunt certainty of a 6-year-old. "You love Mama. Mama loves you. I love both of you. So we should all live together. That's not complicated. That's just how families work." "She has a point," Lena said softly. Ethan looked at her. "Are you saying us?" "I'm saying that we've been taking it slow for 6 months, and maybe it's time to stop being so careful. Maybe it's time to just admit what we all want." "What do we all want?" "To be a family. A real one. All together under one roof." Ethan's face transformed, hope and joy and disbelief all at once. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Move in with us. Or we'll move in with you. Or we find a place that's ours together. I don't care where. I just want us to be together." Maya let out a whoop of excitement. "Does this mean Daddy is coming home?" "Yes, baby," Lena said, her eyes on Ethan. "Daddy is coming home." They found a house in a quiet neighborhood on the north side. 3 bedrooms, a yard for Maya to play in, close to good schools and parks. Not too big, not too small. Just right for a family of 3. Moving day was chaos. Maya was everywhere at once, directing where boxes should go, claiming the bedroom with the window seat, insisting that Mr. Trunks needed to be unpacked first so he wouldn't get lonely. That night, after everything was moved in and Maya was asleep in her new room, Lena and Ethan stood in the kitchen of their house, and just looked at each other. "We did it," Ethan said quietly. "We're actually doing this. Having second thoughts?" "Not even for a second. You?" Lena shook her head. "I spent 6 years angry at you, 6 years building a life that didn't include you. And now I can't imagine my life without you in it. That's terrifying and wonderful and completely insane. Love usually is. Is that what this is? Love? You tell me, because I know what it is for me. I love you, Lena Cruz. I love your strength and your fierce protection of Maya and the way you refuse to let me get away with anything. I love how you rebuilt your life from nothing. I love that you gave me a second chance I definitely didn't deserve. I love everything about you." Lena felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I love you too. Even though you're impossible and infuriating, and you reorganized my entire kitchen without asking. The spices were in the wrong order. See? Impossible." But she was smiling. "Ethan Varelli, I love you. I love that you're trying to be better. I love how you are with Maya. I love that you brought me coffee this morning without me asking. I love that you're here, that you stayed, that you fought for us." He kissed her then, deep and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Ethan reached into his pocket. "I was going to wait. Do this properly with candles and music and some grand romantic gesture, but I can't wait another second." He pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a single stone that caught the light. "Marry me, Lena. Not because of Maya, though she's the best reason I can think of, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with you, because you make me better. Because I love you more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. Marry me." Lena looked at the ring, at Ethan's face, at the hope and fear and love in his eyes. She thought about the girl she'd been 6 years ago, signing termination papers with shaking hands. She thought about the broken pregnancy test she'd left on his desk. She thought about every hard moment, every struggle, every night she'd cried herself to sleep wondering how she'd survive. And then she thought about now, about the man in front of her who'd learned to be a father, who'd changed his entire life, who loved their daughter with a fierceness that took her breath away, who loved her. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, and they stood in their kitchen holding each other, two broken people who'd somehow found a way to be whole. From upstairs, they heard a small voice. "Did Daddy ask you yet? Because I heard him practicing in the car yesterday, and he was really nervous." They broke apart, laughing. Ethan called up, "Maya, you were supposed to be asleep." "I was, but then I heard voices and I wanted to make sure everything was okay." Maya appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas. "So? Did he ask? Did you say yes?" "I said yes, baby." Maya shrieked and ran down the stairs, throwing herself at both of them. "We're getting married. We're going to be a real family." "We already were a real family," Lena said, hugging her daughter close. "But yes, now it's official." They stood there in the hallway of their new house, the three of them tangled together, and Lena felt something she'd been chasing for 6 years finally settle into place. Belonging. The wedding was small and perfect. Just family and close friends in a garden in late October when the leaves were golden and the air was crisp. Maya was the flower girl, taking her duties very seriously, making sure every petal was perfectly placed. Lena wore a simple white dress. Ethan wore a suit that probably cost more than her first car, but looked at her like she was wearing diamonds and stars. When it came time for the vows, Ethan spoke first. "Lena, 6 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I didn't see you, didn't value you, didn't understand what I was losing. And I spent 6 years living with that mistake, building an empire that meant nothing because it was empty. Then I found you again, found Maya, and you gave me something I didn't deserve, a second chance. You taught me what actually matters. You showed me how to be better. You gave me a family and a purpose and a reason to want to be the kind of man worthy of you. I promise to spend the rest of my life trying to be that man. I promise to love you and Maya with everything I have. I promise to be there, to show up, to never take either of you for granted. I promise to build a life with you that's full of love and laughter and all the things I never knew I was missing." Lena was crying before he finished. When it was her turn, she took a shaky breath. "Ethan, you broke my heart 6 years ago. You destroyed my life and sent me away, and I hated you for it. I hated you for a long time, but that heartbreak also made me stronger. It forced me to become someone I might never have been otherwise. And when you came back into my life, when you asked for a chance to know Maya, I was terrified. Terrified you'd hurt her the way you'd hurt me. Terrified that letting you in meant opening myself up to that pain again. But you proved me wrong. You showed up. You changed. You became the father Maya deserved and the partner I didn't know I needed. You're not perfect. You're still impossible sometimes, and you still reorganize my kitchen when I'm not looking." That got a laugh from the small crowd. "But you're mine, and I'm yours. And together we're building something beautiful. I promise to love you even when you're difficult. I promise to believe in you when you struggle to believe in yourself. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your family. I promise to build a life with you that honors both where we've been and where we're going." They exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced them married, and when Ethan kissed her, Maya cheered so loudly that everyone laughed. At the reception, Maya made a toast that was mostly just her telling everyone how happy she was that her mama and daddy were married now, and how she'd known they loved each other even when they were being silly about it. Marcus gave a toast too, surprisingly emotional, about watching Ethan transform from a man who had everything but felt nothing to a man who understood what actually mattered. And Lena's employees from cruise cleaning services stood up together and toasted her for giving them all second chances, for building something that changed lives, for proving that good people doing good work could make a real difference. That night, after the celebration was over and Maya was asleep at Marcus's house for her first sleepover, Lena and Ethan stood on the balcony of their hotel room overlooking the city. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked quietly. "The 6 years you spent alone, the struggle. what you had to go through because of me. Lena thought about it honestly. Sometimes I regret that it was so hard, that I missed my mother's last months, that Maya's early years were such a struggle, but I don't regret who I became because of it, and I don't regret that it brought us here, to this moment, to this life. I regret it, Ethan said. I regret every single day I missed with Maya, every moment you struggled alone, every tear you cried that I could have prevented. I can't change the past, but I swear to you, Lena, I will spend the rest of our future making sure you never regret choosing me. I don't regret it, not for a second. He pulled her close, and they stood there watching the city lights, two people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd built something real from the wreckage of mistakes and misunderstandings and years of separation. 6 months later, Lena stood in the kitchen of their house making breakfast when Maya came running in with news. "Mama! Daddy! You have to come see!" They followed her to the backyard, where she pointed excitedly at a chrysalis hanging from the tree branch. "It's a butterfly. Well, it will be, when it comes out. Can we watch it together, all three of us?" "Of course, baby," Lena said. They sat in the grass, the three of them, watching the chrysalis and talking about butterflies and transformation and new beginnings. "It's like magic," Maya said, "how it changes from one thing into something completely different." "The best kind of magic," Ethan agreed, looking at Lena over their daughter's head. 2 weeks later, they watched together as the butterfly emerged, wet and crumpled at first, then slowly unfurling beautiful wings. Maya was entranced, narrating the whole process, making them promise they could get a butterfly book from the library. When it finally flew away, Maya sighed happily. "It's free now. It can go anywhere it wants." Lena watched the butterfly disappear into the sky and thought about freedom. Real freedom. Not running away from danger or hiding from the past, but the freedom to choose, to stay, to build something lasting with someone who saw you and valued you and loved you. She looked at Ethan, at Maya between them, at the house behind them that was full of laughter and love and second chances. This was freedom. This was home, and it was more than she'd ever dreamed possible. Years later, Lena would think back on that moment, the butterfly taking flight, her daughter's wonder, Ethan's hand in hers, and recognize it as the moment she finally let go of the past, let go of the anger and pain and fear that had defined her for so long. She'd been broken 6 years ago by a man's signature on termination papers, but she'd rebuilt herself into something stronger. And that same man had learned to be better, to do better, to love better. Their story wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated, and it started with heartbreak and injustice. But it was also proof that people could change, that second chances were possible, that families could be built from the most unlikely foundations. On a quiet Sunday afternoon when Maya was 8, she asked Lena to tell her the story of how Mama and Daddy met. Lena looked at Ethan, silently asking how much truth to share. He nodded slightly. Maya was old enough now. Old enough to understand that their story hadn't been simple. "We met a long time ago," Lena began, "when I worked for your father, and we didn't start out as friends. In fact, Daddy made a very big mistake that hurt me very much." "What kind of mistake?" "He didn't believe me when I told him the truth about something important. And because he didn't believe me, I lost my job and had to leave. I was pregnant with you, but Daddy didn't know that." Maya's eyes went wide. "He didn't know about me?" "Not for a long time, 6 years. But when he found out, when he finally learned the truth about what really happened, he spent a long time trying to make up for his mistake, trying to be better. And slowly, very slowly, we learned to trust each other again. And now you love each other." "Yes, baby. Now we love each other very much." Maya thought about this. "So the mistake ended up being okay? Because it brought us together?" Ethan knelt down beside her. "No, sweetheart. The mistake was still wrong. It still hurt your mother, and I'm still sorry for it. But what happened after, when I tried to fix things, when your mother gave me a chance to be better, that's what made things okay. Not the mistake. The choice to try again." Maya nodded seriously. "I'm glad you chose to try again. Both of you." "Me too, baby," Lena said softly. "Me too." That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena and Ethan sat in their living room. Ethan had his laptop out, going over financials for his legitimate businesses. Lena was reviewing schedules for cruise cleaning services, which now employed 47 women and had expanded to 3 locations across the city. "I got an email today," Ethan said, "from the youth center. They want to name it after my mother." Lena looked up. "That's wonderful." "Is it? She died disappointed in me and the choices I'd made, the life I was living. But she'd be proud of you now, of what you've become, what you're building." "I hope so." He closed the laptop, looked at Lena. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't found that evidence? If I'd never known about Maya?" "Sometimes, but I try not to dwell on alternate histories. We're here now. That's what matters." "We're here now," Ethan repeated. He crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. "I love you, Lena Varelli." She still got a small thrill hearing her married name. "I love you too." They stood there in the quiet house, holding each other, and Lena thought about the journey they'd taken. From that terrible day in Ethan's office to this moment of peace and contentment. From broken and separate to whole and together. Power built empires, yes, but love built homes. And this home, this family, was the most valuable thing either of them had ever possessed. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the mistakes of the past or the struggles they'd overcome, but the choice they made every day to be better, to love harder, to show up for each other, and for Maya. The signature that had broken everything had also somehow built everything that mattered, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.